We're good? Okay, so then Milt, if you just want to call the meeting to order.
Sure. So I'm Milt Williams, Chair of the Conflict of Interest Board, and I'm calling the open meeting part of this session to order.
Great,
Proceed,
and so
please.
Catherine Miller is going to be our recording secretary, and we're going to start with just a little introductory comment from Mayor Wiseman.
The proposed amendments to board rules, section 1-02, which defines those public servants that have substantial policy discretion or policymakers, returns to the board for final adoption after the comment period and a public hearing. The board received comments from a trio of good government organizations. The groups broadly support the amendments, but had some additional suggestions, which are addressed in more detail in staff's memorandum. One of those suggestions was that the board clarify when it would post updates to the policymaker list, given the new procedure for city agencies to request reconsideration of a board's determination to add or remove a public servant from the policymaker list. In response to that comment, staff proposes changes to the amendments that would make clear, and as the board has done in the past to correct the policymaker list, that the board would continue to post updated versions of the list whenever necessary, including in response to a board determination following a agency's request for reconsideration. The changes also reflect that the board will promptly notify the affected public servant of the change.
So with that, opening it up for board discussion. Any questions, concerns?
I had a question about one of the other recommendations. The groups recommended that we post aggregate numbers as to how many determinations were upheld or reversed by the board. And I'm not sure I understood why we're not doing that.
I think that's a thing that the board could do. I don't think that that's a thing that any rule change is required for doing. We just want to make sure that we're doing that in a way where we're not sort of specifically identifying individual public servants. But as you said, the aggregate sort of data is data that probably could be made public. And the comment actually isn't even seeking a rule change for that purpose. It's actually asking that the board do that in its annual report. Whether that's the right place or some other sort of place might be the sort of better location for sharing that kind of information. We could evaluate. I think the board's kind of pushed trying to be more transparent about this process and other processes as much as the law will allow. So we're thinking about annual reports right now, so we'll be thinking about that question. But I think for the purposes of the rule, there's nothing that needs to be done in the rule for that purpose.
Okay.
I'd just like to add a word of appreciation to the good government groups for weighing in on this, and maybe just add a side comment on their note about the three big agencies that have been signaled for having very low numbers. I would expect that to be the case, right? Because they've got nothing but foot soldiers, the teachers, the cops, the people working in the hospitals, and their numbers might stay low. But all that said, we ought to take a look at all of this as staff has proposed to do in the past to see if some are too high and some are too low.
All right. With that, we have a motion for adopting the final rule as proposed.
So moved.
And a second. Great. All in favor then?
Aye.
All right. So I think with that, we will publish this as a final rule, come into effect 30 days after publication.